Welcome to Save Every Universe. My name is Robbie. I'm one of your co-hosts. On this episode, we take a look back on horror video games and why Alec and I were so scared that we had to have our guest Tony come lead us through it. Alec couldn't join us today because he had a baby, which was a very terrifying experience all unto itself. If you don't have kids, you may not know what I mean, but if you do, you're probably scared just thinking about having another baby. Anyway, please enjoy this episode about horror video games, and we will be back with you next week.
On this episode, we pee our pants to completion.
That's not spooky. That's not even a little spooky. You don't want to do like creepy wind blowing or like add something. We scare you right out of your pants.
We pee you out of your pants, but only in the DLC.
It'll be solid.
Yeah. You gotta pay extra for that.
Welcome to Save Every Universe. My name is Alec Garcia, one of your co-hosts. I'm a police detective who is transported to a waking nightmare while investigating a grisly mass murder at the Beacon Mental Hospital, and then, I don't know, the game was too scary to finish.
And my name is Robbie. I'm a semi-intelligent creature infected by the T-virus that can still follow orders, pursue, and utter one word. Stars.
Nice. And with us today, we have a special guest who you might remember from a previous episode, Mr. Tony Anderson. Welcome back to the show, my friend.
Thank you. I remember swimming as a boy. I'm the son of a vengeful mother, an original, often duplicated. As a firm believer in work smarter, not harder, I pioneered the walk, don't run, murder philosophy of teenage camp counselors. And I am never truly dead.
That's really solid. Who were you last week, Robbie?
Last week, I was Robin from the Arkham series.
That's a really good one. And last week, I was PewDiePie because we talked about media. I know that's not a video game character. I know. Just hold it. Keep it in your pants for a second.
Give him some time, and I'm sure he'll make a game where you play as him.
Oh, he does have a game. Okay, no, that's fair. Actually, I think he has a mobile game called
he does.
Legend of the Brofist. Okay, cool. I'm covered.
You're covered.
Yeah, so I was PewDiePie last week.
There's probably a couple other games on the dark web that haven't come to light yet. So
yeah, that's actually probably true.
Can't wait for that.
Unspeakable acts.
Yeah.
Speaking of unspeakable acts, we're talking today about horror games. We have a good mix today. We're having Tony back on the show because he's a horror game enthusiast.
Yes.
I was once upon a time and have kind of lost my nerve, and Robbie never was a horror game enthusiast. So
I mostly avoid them as best I can.
Yeah.
That's a young man's game. And I got out as quickly as I could.
that's where I got all the gray hairs. So.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, I grew up playing, like, if you listen to our top 5 games of all time episode, like, Resident Evil was among them. So I grew up playing, like, Resident Evil and Silent Hill and games like that. I really liked Legacy of Kain, Soul Reaver, Dead Space. I've really lost my nerve over the years. So it's going to be really interesting to hear Tony speak his enthusiasm into this arena. What have you on the docket today, Robbie?
So my plan is mostly to punt to you guys because while Alec was growing up playing these games, I grew up watching Alec play these games. I would dabble with some of the adventure ones like Resident Evil, or maybe some with like a flair of it like Devil May Cry.
Yeah, I mean, you played some of the Resident Evils that got a little bit more adventure-based, like 5 and 6.
I played 2. I really liked 2, actually.
Yeah.
And then I didn't play 1.
Yeah.
Or maybe I did when it came out. But either way, like, I never touched Silent Hill.
Yeah.
I never touched any. I think you played some creepy games on PC. I never touched those, and I've mostly avoided it. And even now, I think I just watch other people play it, but I don't do it myself.
Cool. So let's kick it over to Tony, and maybe you can open this up for us of just getting the conversation started of why play horror games at all? Why do we like to be scared? What is it you love about horror games?
Well, it's I have to back up a little bit because my love of horror games goes beyond just games because I love all things horror. My birthday is a little bit before Halloween. When I was a very young, impressionable child, my aunt and uncle took me to a very inappropriate viewing of Piranha.
Nice.
And this other movie called Rabid, which is just messed up. It's about this gal who gets into a motorcycle accident and ends up having like this mouth under her arm with a piece of metal that would suck guys, blood out of them. So it was just creepy.
That sounds familiar, actually.
De Laurento or something like that. But yeah, it's called Rabid. And if you get a chance to check it out, it's just weird. It's about rabies, basically. But
I won't be checking that out.
Yeah. But so I've always been a fall kid, enjoyed Halloween as a kid. Haunted houses, scary movies, growing up, I had, Freddy Krueger posters on my wall, and
right.
I could draw him with my eyes closed and stuff like that. And so, playing video games to me, up until a certain point, it was always like, it was thrilling to an extent. It was like, oh, okay, jump, oh, okay, shoot, do this, slide down the hole, and this and that. But the first horror game that I could remember playing, which is Resident Evil.
Right.
I mean, the first time you walk down that hallway and it goes to that cut scene of the guy on the floor and the guy kneeling, and he kind of looks back over, it was like, oh my God, this is awesome.
Yeah.
It had me right there. And so it, like I said, to me, I love all things horror, and I love, scaring myself and having that, exhilaration basically. So,
right.
That's what it all comes from.
Let's start with that a little bit. Let's dig into that. Do you think it's possible? I'm not sure it is, but do you think it's possible to like love horror games but not horror movies?
So that's the camp I would put myself in, or would have it at one point, is I don't watch horror movies. I don't like horror movies for the most part, but I really like Resident Evil, and I like those tension and those jump scares, and it's a lot of fun. But I think what I like about the video game aspect of it is you're a little bit more in control with sort of like a haunted house too. You can like peek around corners and you can do those kinds of things, because I like haunted houses as well. But I don't like just sitting in the seat and being at the total mercy of the filmmaker. There's something about being that much out of control that I don't like.
Well, I mean, you go to a horror movie and how many times you catch yourself, oh, why are you doing that? Oh, that's so stupid. Don't look in there. What are you doing? Right. Now the video games force you to do that to some extent, but you are now in control. You can run away. I can do this. I can go hide in the closet, or
you can stand and fight.
I can just choose not to finish the game. I'm never going to come back to this ever. So there is, that control where you're not just a hapless passenger. So it adds a lot to it.
So you think that control is what distinguishes the two camps?
Yeah, it's hard to say in general, but I would say for me that's personally what it is.
Because you like both, right?
I like both.
You like horror movies as well.
Yes, I enjoy a good horror movie. I should say I enjoy horror movies. There are bad horror movies which are fun to watch because they're just bad.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's,
you know what? I would say that's true though. I do like a good, well-made horror movie. I think the problem is there's just so few that are well thought through and like character arc. And like the new, what was the one where they go to the cabin and the girl's on drugs? It was a
Cabin in the Woods.
It was a remake of
Evil Dead.
Oh, Evil Dead.
Yeah. That was fantastic. The new one was really good. It was well done, had good characters, and
I totally agree. It's kind of funny you bring that up because knowing Evil Dead, the movie series, and when you talk to people, they always want to talk about 2 and 3. And so when I went to go see the remake, there was people there with their children.
Right.
I'm like, you have just made a big mistake.
Right.
Because this is not Ash running around, this is definitely...
It wasn't kitschy and beef.
And so afterward, the lights came back on, the kid's eyes are just wide. I'm like, yep, scarred for life. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw the trailer for him. I was like, I will never, because I kind of enjoyed the Evil Dead 2 and what's the one after Evil Dead 2?
The
Army of Darkness. Army of Darkness. I really like Army of Darkness. Yeah. And then I was like, oh, this will be fun.
But they're kind of cheeky.
The trailer.
And,
of course they are. But the trailer, I was like, I am not. Because I'll watch those types of horror movies. The cheeky, Zombieland. I think that's entertaining.
Yeah.
It's not that scary, though.
Yeah.
But I won't watch it.
And I feel the same way, though, about like superhero movies. I don't like superhero movies just because I like that superhero. I still want to walk away from it and be like, you know what, superhero or no superhero, that was a damn good movie. Yeah, I want to feel the same way about those movies. So I feel the same way about the horror genre.
Absolutely.
So do you think that burden is as heavy on a game? Like, what are some of your? We'll start with you, Tony. What are some of your favorite horror games, and why do you think?
Well, I have to say, obviously, Resident Evil to me started. And I really struggled. I couldn't think of a horror game before Resident Evil, the original one. But I did kind of make a list. So Resident Evil, I really loved Outlast, the original one.
That was one of the ones, I never played it when it first came out, and I recently had picked it up and I couldn't get through it. I've turned into such a pansy and I could not get through it.
Well,
it was good though.
It's good. It taking away the ability to fight back. Yeah. And making you just completely helpless.
Such a cool mechanic. So, but maybe that's why I had a beef with it. Is like I felt too helpless, and I was like, I can't do this. I got to shut this thing down.
There was a certain point I was talking to a coworker of mine about that game in particular. It's like the only you're this reporter and you go into the building. And the rest of the game is just, you just want to leave the building. That's it. And there are certain points where you are on the other side of an iron gate and the door is like 10 feet away. It's like, I just want to go through the door.
It's like, no, but now you have to go through a leaky basement to get a key off a dead body.
And then the guy's got you strapped down. He's like, oh yeah, go ahead and go. Oh, what, you want to stay? Because you're strapped down, you can't move. It's like, you bastard. So yeah, it was exhausting getting through that. But that's part of it. I mean, when I play a good horror game, and I have more on my list, but when I do play a good horror game, when I'm done, I feel like, I have been working out. I'm exhausted both physically, mentally, emotionally. Yeah. And I don't usually get that from a lot of the games unless, I'm really intense, like player versus player section of Destiny or something like that. But
Yeah, so that's also a part of the draw. But yeah, but anyway, back to your question. So Outlast, I thought Until Dawn was really interesting.
Until Dawn is one of my... So I had a list of like the games that I've played recently that I couldn't get through that I totally wussed out on. So The Evil Within is on there. Outlast is on there.
Oh, yeah.
Resident Evil 7 we played with you in VR. And it was...
I finished that
I don't think I
finally.
could have finished that in VR. It was too...
That was... I'm putting together my own little episode about that, but we'll talk more about that in a second. Because that's kind of haunted housey.
But on my list of horror games that I've played recently that I played start to finish and just loved, and it's one of the games I still think about, and I'm like, man, that was a good game, was Until Dawn. It was a fantastic, great story. Yeah, the whole bit. I
was telling, I remember I was talking to you, Rob.
Yeah,
about
it might have been me.
Yeah, because you're kind of a wuss. No, but I thought it was genius in the fact that and spoilers if you haven't played the game, but it covered all the tropes. It was a ghost game. It was it was a ghost horror story. It was a serial killer. It was a monster. Mm-hmm. But probably the most overlooked brilliant part of it was the interactions with the psychiatrist when he would get you to tell the game what you were scared of, and then it would put it in the game. It was like, oh, that's awesome. So it was amazing.
And I think that's part of the other thing is the slasher gore, like the Outlast stuff was just like shit your pants scary the whole time. And games like Until Dawn, another one I played way back in the day. It's the earliest game I could think of pre Resident Evil was a point and click game called Sanitarium.
Oh yeah,
that was one of my favorite games of all time. But it was like it was dark and there was some gore to it and stuff, but it was a much more psychological thriller. I think that's where I tend to lean, and especially as I get older, that's where I tend to lean.
So would you say, Alec, that you also do you feel that same holy crap, that was intense, adrenaline rush, almost tired afterwards?
Yeah. And so I think that's why I have trouble playing them now. It's like after work and putting baby to bed and like all this other stuff. It's like, I don't know if I have the energy to sit down and shit my pants for 45 minutes or 2 hours or however long. It's like, it's much easier to pick up Destiny or play around a Battlefield or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, I'll say all those things are exactly why I don't play them.
Right.
And we've talked about how you really like some of the richer story type games, and I sometimes can't do it. It's that same reasoning. I feel like I'm too tired
to invest in it and commit.
Now, some of that is just being a parent now and working and having to be an adult. But some of that too, even when I was younger, the adrenaline pumping, fear, energy sapping, that was all of that. Even when I was 18, I was like,
too much.
Fuck that. I'm not doing that again. I just feel I like having that part of that fight or flight, that synapse firing all the time. I can't do it. It's like,
I when I was doing the Resident Evil 7 in the VR, which I recorded all my gameplay and stuff. I had a lot of moments of why the fuck am I doing this? Why the fuck am I doing this? But it takes me back to what I was talking about earlier about my original love of just horror in general, and it really kind of reminded me of a haunted house,
right?
Because I'm originally from Kansas City, and in Kansas City, down in what they call the bottoms, where they used to do a lot of the cattle drives back in the day, there were a bunch of turn of the century, in the early 1900 buildings, 5 or 6 stories tall, old buildings, and people have bought them and turned them into 6-story haunted houses. That's all they are. Yeah. The Edge of Hell, Main Street Morgue, and stuff like that. And so, hundreds of people will line up, and they'll have jugglers and stuff. It's like a carnival, and you spend an hour in line just to get in the door, and then you're inside this thing for an hour. And when I was playing Resident Evil, especially later on in the parts you didn't see, you end up in the basement and, you're crawling underneath the thing. You crouch down. You actually have to kind of crouch down and you're crawling along, and then the door slides shut. And then you hear noise and you turn around and the lights start going off.
Yeah.
Just like it wouldn't. And then you're in pitch black. And I realized at that moment that if I was playing it normally on my TV, I would have, and I really kind of commit myself to playing horror games right, but still I would have some sort of light source.
Right.
I wouldn't be complete. But with the headset on,
yes,
I was completely in the dark.
And I think that's why VR has been so successful with little horror minigames.
Absolutely.
It's such an immersive haunted house experience. It's really, that's a great point.
So you told me a story a little while back, not on before the podcast, about how you like to immerse yourself and
commit to it. You should commit to it.
Would you mind sharing your story about the Alien?
Yeah, so one of the games I used to play was the Alien versus Predator, the original game. I had it on PC. And my dad, when I lived in Kansas City, he used to have this go-kart shop, and I had this computer system. I was working a Gateway computer, so I had a Gateway computer, and it was right around the time when subwoofers started coming out with speaker systems. And so I found, and I was doing a lot of work for him graphically, so I just had my computer at his shop. So he would close up shop and go home, and I would be in this part of town by myself, and I would turn off all the lights, and I would have the little small 15-inch monitor or whatever, but I'd turn the sound way up, and I'd play this game. Yeah. And it was so nerve-wracking because when those little face huggers jump out, the music was thunderous, and so it got to be where my dad would actually hang around afterward and watch me play, kind of like you did with him.
Yeah,
it's fun to watch other people.
It's fun to watch other people.
It's like you're at the horror movie and he's the star,
Right.
So he would sit there and do that, and so then later on, when I got back into console gaming, weirdly enough with Alien Isolation, I would do the same thing. I would turn off all the lights and I would turn my sound bar way up so the music was thunderous. And then, I would do the whole, as much interactivity as I could. I would do the camera where you had to lean and kind of look around the corners. And if I made too much noise, the microphone would hear me and the alien would come. Right. And my daughter learned that. So she would come in and scream and make the alien come kill me. And she thought it was hilarious. But, if you're going to play, and my view is, if you're going to play and you're going to put yourself through that mental, physical, emotional ringer, you got to just go all the way.
Yeah.
And
I think that's why I wussed out on Outlast, because I was playing it with like noise canceling headphones and stuff. And it was like, for the most part, like getting into the mansion and doing the beginning parts, I was like, oh, this is really cool. And then I got to the part where you first see the big guy that's just like hunting you down and you're hiding in the locker and you can like hear the player's breath and stuff. And it's just like, no, I'm done. Like, this is too much.
It's really amazing how a indie low end low graphic game can become utterly terrifying
because it's well paced and taking away those freedoms and those senses of control is really powerful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I can definitely say, like, we were doing research for the VR episode and we went over and tried out Tony's VR. I loved watching Alec play. I mean, it was hilarious and it was still creepy. Like, I could still appreciate, like, holy shit, because you could see on the TV what you were seeing in the VR headset. So I could appreciate why you were so freaked out. And then Tony several times was like, all right, your turn. I was like, you can go fuck yourself. Like, I am not putting that thing on. Well, never.
I was kind of offended by that, too.
I don't care. No way. It's not happening.
And there were a couple moments, like you haven't played it, there's a scene where the girl is like crawling up the stairs, and in the game, it's like you can see it, and your character's backing up, but you're not in control. And that was the most terrifying part of the game, because you totally are not in control. And then she tackles you down the hallway and stuff, and it was like, I was seconds away from I was like fighting my will to not rip the headset off, and or just physically fall over backwards, because it was so intense.
When you don the VR headset, it's one thing to have a controller and something comes at you and you can thumb the stick and spin around and run away. But when you actually have to physically turn your body and resist the absolute urge to run physically because you have all these cables connected to it, but you still have to turn yourself the other way, that took me the longest, because I was like, because you can do it with the thumbstick too, but it's kind of jarring because it doesn't like increments of like 15 degrees or whatever. But, actually having to try to spin physically, it puts you there.
Yeah.
And it's like, so you're back at the theater watching the movie. Oh, I would never do that. Oh, run. It's not as easy as it looks. It's like, no wonder she's always getting caught because I can't run either. It's like I'm at heels or something. It's crazy.
So I had a friend who once, somebody was harassing him for not going to see some latest horror movie, and he was like, no, hell no, that shit puts spiders in your brain. That's what he said when you go see that. And to me, I was like, fine, that's the perfect way to describe it, because for me, if I watch anything like that and truly like commit to it, I have nightmares for weeks. Like, it haunts me. Even and I know this, I can't handle this shit, but even like the It trailer gave me like a nightmare. Gave me nightmares for days.
Well, and using that VR because that's the freshest in my mind of like the most horrifying this is too much experience that I've had. But that Resident Evil experience, she like comes at you and is like has a knife like at your eyeball and that kind of stuff. Like, it's so intense in VR that I just saw that for like a week and a half. Like that, it was just like burned into my retinas, and I would like lay down at night, and that's what I saw.
Well, they did a kind of a brilliant thing when Capcom did, or when they released that, because much like him watching you play games, or like when we were watching you, there's a part of that too, because when I beat Until Dawn, I invited my friends over to play, and I knew what was going to happen. I made them play, and like, what decision did you make? I'm like, I'm not telling you, these go do your thing. And I would watch for the jump scares and watch them, oh, this is amazing. But so what they did basically is they would show you on YouTube footage of people playing the game with the VR headset, but they wouldn't show you what they would see. And the person was describing, okay, I'm in a chair and I'm bound and there's a guy on the floor, and you could see their heart rate, and then the heart rate would go up and stuff. And there's tons of videos where people have attached monitors and they played games like that. And it's like, there's very few games that can have that constant physical effect to you where your heart is just literally racing and you want to rip the thing off and just never come back to this room ever again.
So would you say, since you're more of a seasoned veteran, does it like mess with you? Do you have nightmares, or is it like you do?
It's part of the bonus DLC.
Bonus?
Yes. Yeah, well, I'll put it to you like this. Like when I used to smoke pretty heavily before my daughter was born, I tried quitting a couple times and I did the nicotine patches. And a lot of people don't like the nicotine patches because they give you weird dreams. It just messes with your head. And I'm one of those people who dream very vividly. Like when I first wake up, it usually takes me a couple minutes to realize I'm actually awake and I'm not just still dreaming.
Right.
By the way, this whole thing's just a dream.
It's
yeah, the podcast.
Why didn't I take the blue
We never
pill?
invited you back.
I'm still in the
Just
Matrix,
kidding.
right? Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
It's like the Descent all over again. I'm still anyway, so yeah, when I started taking the patches and stuff, it would give me really intense Twilight Zone like weird dreams, and Twilight Zone's like my favorite show. So I enjoyed it. It was like I was like getting free entertainment at night while I was sleeping. These really messed up dreams. So when I play horror games and they affect me like that, I wake up and I'm like, oh, I'm tired. But it was like, wow, I got to play a whole new level that I made up myself.
Wow.
And it was actually really great. I mean, it doesn't happen all the time. Resident Evil 7 definitely hit that button a lot of times because if you guys ever play it, the old lady is just creepy as hell. Creepy as hell. She doesn't do much. She just kind of sits there and just kind of rolls her head and watches you walk across the room. And just, I mean, I have a whole chapter in my video, but like, you stay in that chair, Grandma. You stay in that chair. Don't you get up, Grandma? But I do. And to me, it's just part of the experience.
That's bonus, though.
Bonus.
See, to me, that's like...
But I think entertainment in general, right? Like you want something that... And you have a preference of what flavor you want that to be, right? Like you've talked about like the ending of Mass Effect, how it like moved you like almost to tears. And like you want that... it gets your heart rate going. Yeah. You want that physiological rush of it moving you.
I will repeat those experiences.
Right. So, but yeah, so it's almost, I mean, I think you have to at least give that slice of fairness to it that, everyone kind of plays games for those reasons.
Yeah.
But with horror, it's adrenaline more than it is like that was meaningful or like that moved me to tears or something like that. It's like that adrenaline fight or flight, like rush that people are after.
That's crazy to me. Like that's all of those things are exactly, I mean, why you're right. Yeah. I mean, I have to, but that's exactly why I don't do it. Cause I'm like, no, that's not bonus. That's insane. That torments me at night. Cause I have vivid dreams. Like everything you described, I also have vivid dreams, but that's exactly why I avoid them because I'm always having these vivid, realistic dreams that mess with me in reality.
And I would say the Evil Within is the other. I love that. I really like that. The spiders in the brain thing. That's really cool.
That's actually, that's really
cool. The Evil Within though was the last game I really played. I got about halfway through the game and I was like, I can't, like the character design was so good. The monster design was awesome. The pacing was great.
Just like what the
resource pacing was fantastic. It was a great game and I'm watching videos already for like gameplay videos for
I think
Evil Within 2. I probably won't buy it because I know I'll get halfway through and it will be a waste of money, but I'll watch some like Let's Plays and stuff because it's a fantastic horror game. It really is it brought what Resident Evil did for our, like the previous generation for us coming up. They really have brought a lot of that forward. Evil Within. It's a great series.
It was great. I think, really quickly, I think that something you touched upon is that, when you go to sit down and play a good horror game, and like I said, you're going to commit to it. It's kind of like, getting ready to play a sport. You have to prepare yourself. And I like those games. I mean, I enjoy the games I can sit down like Destiny and just pop on and play for a couple minutes or whatever if I need to, and my, kiddos eating dinner or whatever, and this and that. But like playing Resident Evil 7, I had to get out the headset, set it down, and actually sit down and kind of like, okay, I'm going to do this. But I have the same exact response to playing really emotionally charged games as well, like The Last of Us.
Yeah, I would agree
The Last
with that.
of Us is a game that I love to death. But when I start playing, I know that it's just going to beat me up, and I have to prepare myself for that.
Sure.
And it never changes. I get to the part.
You kind of have to schedule out time.
Yes,
you don't want to be interrupted, and you're going to do that. Well, that's about our time. Robbie, do you have any final closing thoughts for us on this wonderful episode that was right up your alley?
Yeah. Well, just I think there's a distinguishment between I don't mind being scared in games or startled or the rush or even feeling outnumbered or overwhelmed, but it's there's a line that starts getting too dark and icky, as my criminal law professor would say.
Well, Half-Life 2 did a good job of incorporating horror elements in part of it where it wasn't a full-on horror game, and you loved that game, so that makes sense.
Was it Ravenholm, right?
Ravenholm,
and I liked that level.
Ravenholm.
We don't go there. Yeah, and I liked some of the later Resident Evil games. Yeah. But there comes a point when I cross a line where it's too dark. Yeah. It's too far down the path where I'm my brain is nope. We don't go that far. We don't go to Ravenholm. It's my brain is we're not doing that. Let's go back to the light. I can't do this.
Yeah.
See, I'd be the Willy Wonka guy. Welcome to Ravenholm!
Yeah. No, I can't do that.
Tony, any closing thoughts for us?
No, I mean, like I said, I know horror is not for everybody. And I really think that the video game industry or genre or medium in general is really at a great place where, it's more than just a game. It's a media experience. It's like going to a movie that you're the star in. And there's, you can read books and things like that and picture in your head, but this is the one experience that you can actually kind of live and control. And it's really, the VR thing, it's been a great addition, and I enjoy it. And I know it's not for everybody, but it's in a great spot. And I think it's only going to get better.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I'm the cowardly lion who lost his courage. Thank you for listening to Save Every Universe. If you enjoyed this episode, please go give us money, lots of money at patreon.com/Save Every Universe, and listen to every single one of our episodes.